Why are changes so hard? Even the things that you always wanted, always dreamed about having, may be really hard to adjust to. So in this video, I wanted to talk about what mechanisms come in place, what goes on unconsciously in your mind and in your body when you go through adjustment, even to the changes that you always wanted to have in your life, and how to remain centered amongst all the chaos that comes with the change, with uncertainty, and with all the things that resurface that you didn't plan to happen in the first place. A few days ago, I moved into a new country. I moved to Portugal from the UK after many years of living there, and that happened after over a half year of my dreaming to move here. All the anticipation, all the planning and dreams, all the things that I wanted to happen, they are happening right now. And there's a lot of things that I didn't plan for. Even though I thought I was so prepared, there's all the stressors and all the stimuli that come at me, and they require a huge amount of emotional, mental, and nervous system labor, so to speak, so that I can adjust and finally enjoy the change that I always dreamed about. And you might have gone through a similar changes in your life, whether they were happy changes, positive changes in your life, like starting a family or getting married or getting a new job. And you might have noticed that all the things that you wanted about this thing didn't prepare you for all that stress that comes with getting it. The last time I moved a country, that was 9 years ago, and the memory is still fresh because the stress that came with this positive change in my life caused me so much stress that literally it broke down my body into activating a severe illness that lasted almost 2 years of my life. That's why I was really now thinking about how to encapsulate all that knowledge that I received and all the things that I have taught people that had to deal with the aftermath of any kind of changes in their life, and to put it out for you in this video so that you can learn how to deal with any kind of change, as well positive and negative changes in your life. How to deal with the chaos, with the uncertainty that comes with all the changes that are required. So like I said, 9 years ago, my whole body broke down under the overwhelm of stress. But now, with this current move, I know better. I know what things are required of me so that I keep centered and maintain as much clarity during these chaotic times that I didn't plan for. So let's start by talking how we're built, how our psyche and biology is built, because this is what you need to understand so that you know what goes on during this time. So we are biologically created so that we resist a change. We run in the sort of, you call it autopilot, or by using the muscle memory, and we use the habit that is being reinforced over a long period of time so that we handle the daily events, the things that we have to do with ease, and then they don't require as much effort. So by this premise, you know how hard it is to start any new habit. Whenever you wanted to create a change in your life, like even changing a route to a new workplace, it's demanding. Not to mention moving the house, getting married, or all the big events that you have to adjust to. Our biology, and specifically our nervous system, has to deal with a large amount of stimuli that are new and that we have to process. And otherwise, we can really break down under the overwhelm of too much of new things happening at the same time, if you don't know how to handle this. So I have worked with many people who, like myself, didn't have the knowledge on how to deal with changes in the past. And what happened? They broke down. Now I don't do this kind of work anymore. I don't help troubleshoot. I work towards creating life more. But this knowledge is still valid for anyone having to create that resiliency in their body and in their mind to deal with that stress. So the people that I worked with, I can give you some examples, have gone through some very positive examples of events that they couldn't deal with. One of my clients gave birth to a child, beautiful, healthy, radiant child. Another client of mine, she got married, and under the overwhelm of this marriage, her body also broke down because she couldn't handle the stress of the accumulation of preparation, dealing with being in a new role, changing the house situation. All those things were new. And I wanted to say all those things to you to bring them up so that you know that what you wish for, it doesn't always have to manifest in the way you had planned for you to be. We put a lot of expectations onto something that will happen in the past. And even if the change is unexpected and something that we didn't want, we still require that same level of clarity and resiliency to deal with it. The inability to deal with a lot of stimuli that happens with any change causes us to break down. If you don't know how to process it, it causes your mind and body to break down. It clogs up your energy because of that stress and overwhelm of having to do with too many things at the same time. So imagine, I was thinking about creating an analogy for you to understand. Imagine a machine. We are like a machine that runs on autopilot. We create those habits and we create this muscle memory that we always go to the same place. We eat similar food. We wake up. We recreate some events. We speak in the same way. We go back to the same workplace. We go and catch the same bus or train. We speak with the same people every day, most likely. And these things facilitate our day so we don't exhaust ourselves. And the analogy I wanted to bring up is very much of a machine in a factory. So it also goes on autopilot. It's been programmed to deal with a certain amount of stimuli, a certain amount of produce that they have to process every single day. And they have a certain processing power that is being taught to maintain. And imagine that this machine all of a sudden gets a huge amount more of produce to process, a huge amount of new things that they have to, I don't know, I didn't come up with what kind of machine that is, but imagine that it gets way too much than it's used to. What would happen in this situation? Just imagine it gets very quickly backlogged. It cannot deal with processing all this, and very quickly it breaks down. It just simply just collapses under too much of things coming in that it cannot clear out as effectively as it's used to do. And we work very much the same, because we have this makeup that we work towards for a long period of time that makes it easy for us to function in our days. So whatever change happens, that wanted change, maybe getting married or having a child, even if you've been preparing yourself towards it, it still is a lot of new things coming into place. Or something like dealing with pandemic, like the situation that we had to adjust to. And maybe you can remember some of the things, especially from the beginning, the first year, how many adjustments it required of you. And so many people collapsed. Their mental health collapsed, and they really suffered under adjustment to the chaotic situation due to uncertainty, not being able to predict, and their body and their mind not being adjusted to dealing with that level of newness, of novelty in their life. So now it brings me to wanting to share, how do you deal with all that? How do I deal with a huge, massive change? Like, I moved to this country, I prepared myself as well as I could, but during a time of stress highlights all the wounds. It brings up all the habits, how we used to deal with reactionism. And I spoke about this in my last video, how to break down, unlearn the patterns to some degree, that stress highlights whatever we were dealing with, that was simmering. And it really blows it up, because with all the new changes, we have to, troubleshoot some things. We have to be creative to come up with solution very fast, because things happen very fast that you didn't predict. And for me, these are things like some situation with tax office in the new place that I didn't plan, and some situation with tax office back in the UK that I thought it was all clear, but now it comes with some stress, because there's a lot of things coming up that are important, like money things, living situation, and things like this that are big and important, and how to not get stressed amongst all of this. I wanted to also address one energetic dynamic that comes in place. Now that I spoke about this, it made me think about, when there are massive changes in our life, it literally changes energy in the most basic chakras of our nervous system. That's why, for example, things like move are going to destabilize, especially your root chakra, that may come with some physical changes for you, or basically the lower three chakras. It can block some of that energy, causing you to clog up, to contract, not to be able to let go, because like I said, we are constructed to maintain the status quo. And if we don't maintain that status quo, then it means we lack security. We feel like we are unstable. We feel like we are not safe in this world. It's really hard to trust when you're amongst uncertainty, when you are in a chaotic environment. That's why people who grow up from chaotic families, dynamics, they are the most controlling people that really want to grasp for that security. And by the way, this is me. That's why I wanted to share with you yesterday when I had a situation that brought up a lot of chaos in my life, that, you know, dealing with tax office back in the country where I moved from, brought up a lot of anger and a lot of helplessness that was under anger. You know, for people it can show up in various ways, but some level of helplessness of dealing with a situation can bring about a lot of really strong energies: powerlessness, shut down, anger, fear, anxiety, panic, you know, and these also come into our bodies to manifest in various ways as various symptoms. Some people, when they move to another country, they get constipated or cannot swallow because they are so closed up. They're holding onto something, they're grasping, you know, and our body always manifests in the same way as the mind does. If our mind cannot trust, if it cannot let go of what we predicted and anticipated and thought it was going to be easier, then our body is going to do the same thing. So now I'm back on track to telling how to deal with any change and what would you have to do to maintain some level of clarity and resiliency. Well, first of all, it's best to prepare yourself way before changes and start already now where you're at to build up this resiliency in your body through meditation, through spending time on journaling, on reflection, every single day ideally, looking at your thoughts, looking at your emotions, and looking at the corresponding sensations. Because you have to get familiar with your body. You have to get that knowledge of sensory perception of how certain emotions and thought patterns feel like in your body. And I spoke extensively about that in my previous videos that I can link here, about how to stay grounded and present regardless of the circumstances. But here I wanted to really pull out the important things that you want to do when it comes to dealing with change. So having that extra time for you every single day to process. Because I mentioned that analogy of the machine that doesn't have the capacity to process. So you have to create more capacity to process. How do you do this? By having more alone time every single day. So now every evening I don't watch anything, I don't go on computer. I spend all evenings and all mornings meditating, journaling, doing my qigong practice, because this is what I do nowadays, some stretching, some breathing, having that space to process emotions, writing down, what do I think, how does it make me feel, observing my reactions to those things that come up, those uncertain, chaotic events on my days, and observing my reactions and allowing myself to react however I react, you know, if I cannot catch myself and respond to it with awareness. But as fast as I can to reflect on this and become more intentional with my response. How can I process it better? And what it brought up, this reaction of mine. Get curious. I always say you want to get curious, not judgmental about your responses, your reactions. You don't want to judge yourself and put yourself down and impose even more stress in the stressful situation. Create more compassion than you could. So these are things I do, having more time to process, writing, meditating, journaling, going on long walks when I can, looking at nature, at the ocean, because this is why I'm here, taking a bath, talking to close ones if I have to, but really spending more time alone with myself and giving myself as much space to process that influx of stimuli that I didn't predict. I wanted a change, but I didn't predict all the problems that come in place. And there is one thing I wanted to mention that is of a great interest to me. In the 60s, there were a couple of psychiatrists, I think John Holmes and another psychiatrist, and they created what's called social readjustment scale, rating scale, I think. And it talks about the relationship of stress with illness. You know, I read about this in Book of Sarah, and that was very curious to me how very high on the list of stressors that contribute to breakdown of the body in the form of disease are things like marriage, finding a new workplace, gaining a member of family. They are on like 7th place after death of a close one and going to jail, you know, really high up. And that talks about, you know, it just goes to show how any change in our life needs to be approached with all the compassion that we can amount to. We can resource, you know, get so much compassion towards ourselves as we can, to take things slowly, not to get too much on, not to overwhelm us with more responsibilities than we can deal with. These are the ways how you can maintain that level of resiliency during the time of change. But the most important thing is that you don't wait until it happens. You start doing those practices as soon as you can today, ideally, and find a way to build that resilience in your body and in your mind right now, so that when the change happens, wanted or unwanted, you will know how to deal with it. And I think now I'm talking about this, I will probably create another video talking specifically about building up that resilience that is important, especially after what we've witnessed in the last year or so, when there is a lot of things that we don't expect happen in our lives. We can only control about 1% of things in our life. And that just goes to show that 99% of life is pure chaos, and we have to be able to trust. And that requires that resilience, that requires working with your nervous system to give yourself that capacity, both in your mind, both in your emotions and in your body, that you can deal with anything that goes your way, and that you can process it in your own way as best you can without breaking up. And I talk a lot about those things, how to get what you want in your life, how to create the life that you want as safely and as happily that you can, so that you don't have to pay too much of a price. I talk about this a lot in my videos. I will link the most appropriate video for you to deepen, even further deepen that knowledge for you. And through the things that I teach to my private clients, I share them here with you for free, so you can get as much of this for yourself as possible. Join me in the next video.